Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's a great pleasure to be here today. It's a great honor. And before I start with anything else, I would like just to do a very short prayer, which I do anywhere I go. It doesn't matter if I am in a conference, if I am in a school, in a hospital, in a temple. It doesn't matter where I go, which is the context. I always start with this very short prayer, which is a prayer in which, for me, it's a way of generating gratitude towards those that have taught me. Because if there is anything that I can share with you today here, it's because someone have taught me. So I just a prayer in which I remember my teachers and the teachers of my teachers, and like this. Okay? So the first part of the prayer is in Tibetan, the second part of the prayer is in Sanskrit. So very briefly. Ocho sambo pagyo trashe pal tuje tembe trenle yarno da pege trolo sambe zebra che pande lame shabla sowade Oma a guru vajra dara sumati munisha sane kar Uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Pakyuke kudanda gilo pakyuke sundanda gina Pakyuke tugdanda giye ten yerme çikto çingilo Makyuke kudanda gilo makyuke sundanda gima Makyuke tugdanda giye ten yerme çikto çingilo Oma muni muni maha muni shakya muni soha Okay. I would like to start today with one of the things that for me is the most important. I have been traveling to many different parts of the world. I have met all kinds of people. And from very rich people to very poor people, from people that have the most higher level of education to people that doesn't know how to read or write, often very wise also. But I have met all kinds of people, religious, non-religious, and so on. And for whatever reason, being in this position as a Lama, often people come and there is an exchange which goes beyond formality. And this allowed me to know well people in different cultures and different places. And there is something that becomes very, very clear to me, which is taught in the philosophy, which is taught in the teachings, but it's important for us to have our own direct experience instead of just following what is written. And what is written there, what was taught, is that it doesn't matter where we go, it doesn't matter who we meet, we are all the same. In which aspect? There is no one that doesn't want to be happy, and there is no one that wants to suffer. Everybody, it doesn't matter where, it doesn't matter who. We all want to be happy, and nobody wants to suffer. Sure, we are very different, because the ways how we try to be happy and the ways what we do not to suffer is different. But there is this very basic instinct, there is this very basic wish, which is the same for everyone. And there is one more aspect which, the first time which I understood it, for me was a bit shocking somehow, to see it in this way, but I think it's quite clear. Everybody, it doesn't matter whom, do everything he or she does. We do everything we do, thinking is the best for our own happiness, guided very often by our own ignorance. Which means, if we look around in the world and we see the person doing the most crazy thing, why is the person doing that? Because he or she thinks that that's the best for their own happiness. When we see the most outrageous acts of violence, or when we see the people doing really strange things, strange means what we would not do, right? That's what strange is normally, right? For them it's not strange. Based on their own way of seeing, based on their own worldview, based on their own experience and everything else, they think that that's the best that they should do. Okay. So, as there is something in common so powerful, here comes a very important question. What is this happiness that we all want so much? One time I was helping a friend to do her master degree on economy, and she was studying in a university in Milan and was doing a degree on the economy of developing countries and so on. So we were talking together, trying to develop her thesis and so on, and came to one point where the question that was about is, what's the goal of economy? That's what the question that I put to her. And we started to work out on that. And as we went through, my own idea, which we came together, was, okay, why do we have all this organization, and why we try to put all things together? Why do we create health systems? And why, through economy, we try to organize the whole society and everything else? What's the ultimate goal of that? The well-being of human beings. The well-being of people within a society, a country, and a whole as our human beings. So ultimately, the goal, in a more, how to say, idealized view, the ultimate goal of economy and so on, of politics also, what should it be? The happiness of all. So I asked at that time to her, I said, so if the goal of economy is for people to be happy, is there a definition of happiness given within the context of economy? And she told me, look, I have read so many books. I had many classes about everything. I never ever saw anywhere a definition of what happiness is. And here we get to a big problem, which is, how can we strive for something that we don't know what it is? It doesn't work. And that's the point. We all want the same, but we are not really sure about what it is, and we do not agree on what it is. So we end up doing things completely different. Very often we end up in conflict between ourselves, not because we don't want the same objective, but because we see it in a different way. We all want to be happy, but we have a different idea of what actually happiness is. This makes me to remember one situation which happened in Brazil with a friend of a family friend. He was actually the best friend of my grandfather. Of my great-grandfather. Also a friend of my grandfather, but he was the best friend of my great-grandfather. And anyhow, this man, he was a man that had a lot of power and money. He went into politics in the most difficult time of Brazil, and he was able to make his own life. So he made a lot of money. He was very influential in the whole Brazil. Now he's very old, still influential, but not as much as in the golden times of his career. And he had one of the biggest difficulties that he went through was the relationship with his son. And what happened was that the son had one idea of what happiness is. The father had a very different idea of what happiness is. So when I have one idea of happiness and I love you, what do I want for you? My idea of happiness. And you have your own idea of happiness and you love me, so what do you want from me? Your idea of happiness. Making a long story short, really simplifying a lot. What happened, and it brought a lot of conflicts at the time and a lot of suffering. Finally, very happy that it was solved. We were able to deal with the situation. Was that according to the father, happiness came through self-realization. Through work, through a career, making one's own money, making one's own success, being self-sustainable, self-reliable, and so on. What he did in his life. So this was his idea of what will make you happy. The son, he's a surfer, and his idea was, happiness for me is to be in nature with my friends, surfing, and living with the money that my father made. That's the idea of the son. Because for him, money is just a tool to pay the bills for what he needs to do. He doesn't see any thing coming back from the fact of having a special job or being able to fulfill his wishes in a career or having an important position. He doesn't give any importance to that. So they have different idea of happiness. And the problem was what? One tried to impose on the other their own idea of happiness. And they end up thinking that one didn't love the other. When they loved each other very much, but they simply had a very different idea of what actually happiness is. Okay. So this brings us to one very simple concept, which is the way how we love others is a reflection of the way how we love ourselves. Remembering that love, the definition of love according to Buddhism, is the wish for happiness. I love you, I wish you to be happy. There is another thing which is, I love you, I cannot live without you, this means I desire you. Desire means I need you for my happiness. Love means your happiness is important for me, and I will do everything I can for your happiness. This means I love you. Okay? Sometimes we mix things together. There's love and desire together, that's fine, but just important to make clear. One thing is one thing, another thing is another thing, and they can be together also, but when we mix the two and we don't know what is what, it can create some conflicts, okay? So in the moment that love means to wish happiness, I can only wish a happiness for you that first I'm able to wish it for myself. So we love others in the way how we love ourselves. And we go back to the original question. What is happiness? Okay? To have clearly this, to be able to answer more clearly this question, I would like to go through 4 parts. I would like to put it into 4 parts. These 4 parts are actually 4 important things that we all have in our lives, and that they are part of what is our worldview, the paradigm in which we live. Accordingly, how we relate to these 4 things changes completely our life. It determines very strongly how we live our life, according to these 4 things. Okay? So they are: what is suffering? Remembering that happiness and suffering are just 2 aspects. So not to suffer and to be happy, it's more or less the same thing. Just 2 aspects of the same. Okay? So, what is suffering? Where do my suffering come from? What are the causes of my suffering? What is happiness? How to be happy? Okay? So we have these 4 things. What is suffering? Why do I suffer? What is happiness? How to be happy? So let's start with these 4. First one, when we ask ourselves what is suffering, because here again, if for me suffering is the lack of material resources and I love you, and I have compassion of you, and I see that you are suffering, what will I do? I give you material resources, and then you are not suffering, and I say, why are you suffering? Now you have money. So what is actually suffering? Where is suffering coming from? These are first 2 points. So going directly to the point, because we could stay a long time talking about this. Normally we divide suffering into 2. Today we will go into 4. 2 is physical suffering and mental suffering. Okay? Physical suffering is pain in the body, cold, heat, hunger, thirst, and so on. Okay? Mental suffering, anxiety, fear, sadness, hatred, jealousy, envy, all the states of our mind which are uncomfortable and through which we suffer. So if we look in our life generally, which suffering we have more, physical or mental? What do you think? We have both, but which one is stronger? Mental suffering, I would say, right? One of the teacher of my teacher, NgalSo Rinpoche, he used to say, I listened one time in one teaching, I never met him personally because he died when I was too young. But in one recording he said, the sufferings are of two types, physical suffering and mental suffering. The poor suffer mostly of physical suffering, the rich suffer mostly of mental suffering. By the end of the day, they suffer in the same way. Okay? So, in our society, we take very good care how to deal with physical suffering. So we always have food when we are hungry, we always have a drink when we are thirsty, we always take care of the extreme temperatures, we know how to deal with physical suffering. If there is pain, we have a painkiller, we do something to take away the symptom. We take good care of our physical suffering, right? Then comes the part of mental suffering. Okay, this is a little bit more what I think we need to take care. Now, before entering into mental suffering, we just go into another division again. The physical suffering we already saw. Then there is the mental suffering. We could divide into three parts, basically, which is, if we take the division of 4 and we take the 2, it becomes physical suffering, then another 3, which is material suffering, which could be a part physical, a part mental. We have social suffering, and we have mental suffering. So what would be material suffering? Not having what to eat, not having a safe place where to live. Okay? But actually, do we suffer because of material things or not? Can we suffer because something breaks? Or because our car got scratched? Or can we suffer because we want something and we cannot get what we want? Or because the stock market went down and some numbers in the computer changed? Can we suffer because of material things or not? Actually, yes, right? So, just very briefly, one of the main things to deal with material suffering, if I get, by having more and more, will that make the material suffering to become less? No. I remember one day I was at lunch in Milan, in a very nice restaurant, because it's a restaurant where, very traditional restaurant where all kinds of people go. So I was with some friends, and 2 of them, one was the actual owner of the restaurant, and then they worked together with his brother and so on, which is making investments here and there. And then on the table next, there were some people that always go to the restaurant for lunch, which are construction workers, and all types of people have lunch there together. Very traditional lunch place. And then my friend and his brother, they were very upset that day because it was in the beginning of the crisis in Europe, and they had lost a lot of money in the stock market, whatever, and here and there it was a difficult moment, and so on. And they were complaining about it, and they were sad. And then after some point, they were talking. There was this guy on the next table, and he was a construction worker. Very simple man, very nice. He always go to eat there, so they know each other since a long time. So he just looked at it and said, "That's the good thing of not having anything. I don't have this type of suffering, you know. This is a problem I don't need to go through." What I want to say is that there is a saying in Tibetan which is Mila Gyugo Gyula Dakpo Go, which means people need things, things need owners. The more I have, the more time, the more space I need to give to take care of these things. The more the things I have consume my life. So one very simple rule. The things that we have should be there to serve us and not us to serve them. So there is a rule which I try to apply the best as I can in my life, which is, if I see that I have something, and this thing that I have has no function in the present, no reason for me to keep it for the future, no benefit for myself and others having it, or I give, or I sell, or I throw. Because keeping things that we don't need, that have no function whatsoever, is just accumulating and taking away our life, taking away the space and our time and our energy and our space in our mind and so on, because we need to take care of them. Okay? So to deal with material suffering, one thing that we understand is, first of all, that actually we cannot eliminate material suffering by simply having more. This doesn't work. But there is a very simple thing that we can do, which is making a clear distinction between what I need and what I want. Okay. Normally, we suffer more materially because we don't have what we need or because we don't have what we want. Mostly it's because we don't have what we want. So if we just make a thing that, okay, what I want is just an extra. If it's possible, nice. If it's not possible, okay also, no problem. And what I need to take care of that. I learned a lot of this in the monastery because I would go to my teacher, which was like a father there. He would take care of me. Whenever I would say, oh, Genla, which was the way of calling him, and so Genla, I want this. And he would look to me and he said, you want it? I said, yes, and so what? I want. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. I want. Then I learned after some time, because if I went to him and I said, Gela, I need. Oh yes, let's do it. And then one day he taught me, I was restructuring a little bit the house where I was living. And one day he told me, he said, because fix one thing here, then need to fix something else there, make it a little better here, a little better then. The first things were a little bit critical, then afterwards just extra somehow. And then he told me one day, he said, look, anything that you really feel you need to do, I will help you. If you want to do anything here in the house, and you really think it is important for you, you really need it, I will help you. But remember one thing, desire has no end. The more you have, the more you want. The more you want, the less you have. And I looked and I said, wow, that's true. So what I did at that time was I didn't finish some parts in the house to remember me that is never going to finish. So there were some things there in the construction that were started but they didn't finish on purpose in a way to remember me that it doesn't matter how much I do, there will always be more to do, because the more I have, the more I want, the more I want, the less I have, so it's going on and on and on like this. So how to make our own material suffering less? What I need, I will do everything for it. What I want, I don't need necessarily to fulfill it. Not becoming slaves of our wants, but taking care of our needs. Okay? Next type of suffering, social suffering. Social suffering is the suffering related to relationships. The suffering that is there related to the way how we relate to our father, our mother, children, husband, wife, friends, work people, colleagues, and so on. Okay. Normally, which type of suffering we have more? Physical, material, or social? I believe social. Also because when there is a social suffering, it's so deeper and so stronger, then all the rest doesn't matter so much anymore. Everything can be beautiful, but if we are in conflict with the person we love, that's difficult. Okay? So, we're not going to go into details on this, but very briefly again. We suffer more in the relationship with other people because of what they are or because they are not what we think they should be. Okay? It works like this. When we meet someone, we create an image of the person. I meet you today, I have an image of you. Then, okay, we don't see each other for some days, we're going to meet again after a week. Who I think I'm going to meet? The same person, right? But who I think I will meet? The image I have in myself. So I kept an image, and I think that I will see that person that is the image I have of the person. But what happens if we take any one of us and we put him in the center? And then we call all the friends and family members, and we ask each one to make a description of the person. Okay? Of ourselves. We call all our friends, family, people we know, and each one will just describe who we are and how we are. And then we make a description of ourselves also. Is there any one of the descriptions going to be exactly the same? No. So sometimes people say, nobody understands me. That's true. But don't worry, because no one will ever understand you as me. Because no one will ever see us as we see ourselves. That's quite clear, right? So what happened here is the following. Whenever we are in front of a person, we need to remember clearly that we do not relate truly to the person, but we relate to the person through the image we have of the person. And very often we are so attached to the image of the person that when the person cannot sustain anymore that image, who we blame? The image that is not updated, or the person? You know, I have created such a nice image for you, and you are not following it. You know? You are the one to blame. Have you ever heard the phrase, you were not supposed to be like that? I'm sorry, I am what I am, you know. I am the result of all the experiences I had, of the education I received, of the culture in which I grew, of the traumas that I had. I am the result of everything that I lived, and I am what I am. I'm sorry if I do not match the expectations that you had, and I do not match the image that you have of me. But I am what I am. And very often the conflicts that happen between us is because we create an image, an idealized image of the other person, and then at a certain point we understand that the person doesn't match perfectly the image that we have, and we blame the person. And we want to force the person inside the image that we created for the person. Or even sometimes worse, we feel that we have been, how to say in English, traído. We feel that we have been betrayed. I am betrayed by you because you are not what you are supposed to be. I have trusted you in this way, then you do not match the way how I see you, then somehow I feel betrayed by you. Okay. But what is it all about actually? The simple fact that I have an image that I create. But my image is static. It's not always moving, while you are always changing. So one thing which is important is mental image updating. From time to time, we need to go to the person and remember that we need to update the image that we have of the person. But the most important of all is to understand that we relate to people through an image that we have of them. And we know no other way how to do it actually. So it's okay. But we just need to do that we are in that. We need to know that we are in that way, so we are not going to create conflicts out of that. And just to add one more thing, on top of the image, we create sort of categories. We have the idealized image of the person, plus the idealized image of the category. So we put father, mother, uncle, auntie, grandfather, grandmother, husband, wife, son, daughter, teacher, colleague, and so on and so on. So what happens is that I have a little box for mother, for a sister. That what happens when my mother doesn't fit in the box I've given to her? Who's to blame? The box or the mother? Say, but you are my mother. A mother shouldn't be like this. You are my son. A son shouldn't be like this. You are my friend. A friend shouldn't be like this. And like this we go on. So we get upset and we enter into conflict because I have chosen very carefully a nice box for you and you don't fit anymore in it. We are not able to relate to people without categories, truly. But we need to remember that we relate through categories. And we need to try to make our boxes flexible. And understand there is no one will fit perfectly to the boxes that we create. So we need to adapt it to the people. And one beautiful exercise is try to see the other person beyond the categories and beyond the image that we have of the person. It's not really possible, but by making the effort, we get more near to it. Okay? Beyond the box is possible, but beyond the image is not really possible, but we start to open ourselves to it. And it's like saying, okay, first of all, you are a human being. Then it come to be that you are my father, that you are my friend, that you are my husband or my wife or whatever, but first I see you as a human being, just as me. And I try to look at you, I try to know who you are. Okay? So if we are aware of this mechanism, already a good deal of our social suffering, we are able to deal with it. Okay? Now, the last but not least, we have mental suffering. Mental suffering comes from our anxiety, fear, hatred, aversion, and so on. Okay? Normally, how do we experience our own inner states of suffering? As if, okay, another way. When we are sad, when we feel fear, when we have anxiety, and so on. Normally, is it because we simply have these emotions, that is something that depends on us, that we need to change from within, or I am sad because something happened? How do we see it normally? As a result of the world that is around us, or as something that is coming from within? Okay, the same question another way. What happens inside is a result of what happens outside, or what happens outside is a result of what happens inside? Or no? Maybe both together. That's a better answer, actually. Okay. With this, let's go just to the second step to understand better. Why do we suffer? When we suffer, normally, do we point the finger towards something or someone or not? Normally, yes. No. One time a friend told me a saying, I don't know from which culture, but it says, remember that whenever you point one finger to the other, there is three fingers pointing towards you. No? But the point is that normally, why do we suffer? Where do we project the causes of our suffering? In the internal world or in the external world? External, right? Making it simple, if everything was the way how it's supposed to be, I would be completely happy. Right? So, if everybody did what they are supposed to do, if everybody acted in the way how they are supposed to act, if everybody had the feelings towards me that they are supposed to have, if everybody followed the things how they are supposed to do, if the world was perfect, I would be happy. So it's not me to blame that I am angry. It's just a result because people are not doing what they are supposed to do, or things are not in the way how they are supposed to be. It's not my fault that I feel sadness. It's because things are not the way how they are supposed to be. It's not my fault that I am feeling anxiety, or it's not my fault that I feel fear, or I am jealous, or I am envy. I don't like to be jealous. I know that it's not good, but look what the other one is doing. Okay? So normally we act as if we were a victim of the world. And if the world was different, simply everything would be fine. But I understood something when I was around between 15 and 16 years. Actually thinking, well, a little bit more, I think, because thinking of the moment, I think I was 17, 18 at the time. I understood the following. Problems exist and will always exist. Because normally what happens? When one problem finishes, what's the rule? At least one more starts, right? And what happens when one problem finishes and no problem starts? We create one. Okay? That's what happens normally, right? So basically, when I understood this, not conceptually but more deeply, and I said, wow, problems exist and will always exist, so good. I can finally relax. Because until then, I was living my life trying to make everything perfect. And I was thinking, when this will be fixed and that will be fine, I will be happy. When that other thing will be like this and that other thing will be like that, then I will be happy. But what's the actual truth? That there is always something that is not right. And even worse, when everything is right, we see them as if it was not right. No? When we have a real strong problem in our life, I don't know if everyone has gone through real strong problems like sicknesses, or real difficult economical situation, or being in real danger, and so on, which luckily not so many people go through these things. But when we have a moment when we have a real strong suffering, do we bother ourselves with the little things? No. What happens when we don't have real suffering? We start creating them. We start bothering, oh, I have a pimple here. My hair is getting white. I'm not saying these are not problems, okay, but there are other things in life that when they come, we don't give so much attention to that. But the very point which I want to bring is the following. Do we always suffer for the same things or not? Are there situations with which before we used to suffer and now we don't suffer anymore? I'd say yes. Are there things that before we used to make us happy and now we are not happy with it anymore? Also. So what is this showing to us? That external situations by themselves cannot make us happy or cannot make us suffering. It depends the way how we relate to the world. That's fundamental. Sometimes the very same situation, when we change perspective, it changes from good to bad, from bad to good. So this comes to the following point. We are unable to perceive anything, independently of ourselves. Everything that we see is a reflection of who we are, of the way how we relate to the world, of how we experience things, of our own perspective, from where I look, how I see. And even the past can change when we change perspective. For example, I always imagine this situation. I think in Brazil it's more probable. In Holland more difficult. But let's say we're walking in the road and suddenly come a person that we have never seen from the side, from our back, and pushes earth very hard. We fall on the floor, break our arm. Okay? Like an exposed fracture. Really bad. Then, okay, comes the ambulance, takes us to the hospital, and so on. As we are there in the bed of the hospital, what type of feeling we have towards the person that pushed us? Attraction, aversion, indifference? We have aversion, right? So not only our arm is painful, but we have mental suffering, saying, why this person did this to me, who was that person, I didn't do anything towards him, why is that, and when I catch him I will do this, or I will do that, and I will call my lawyer, I don't know. Whatever is the way of what we are thinking, I will make him pay for what he did. We are all on that process, okay? Which is suffering. Then, at a certain point comes the police. And the police comes and shows us a video from a security camera showing what happened. And what had happened was that behind me, us that we couldn't see, there was a robbery with a gun. And a man shot in our direction. And the guy that was near to us, he saw it. And he pushed us in order for us not to get killed. Okay? And he saved our lives. So once we see this and the police come and say, oh, you look how good what happened to you. You are lucky to be alive. And we go back to the place and we see the bullet on the wall in front of us near to where we were walking. Now, what feeling we have towards the person that pushed us? Gratitude? Hopefully. Our arm is still painful, but the perspective changed. So what I want to say is that everything that we perceive, it comes through us and the perspective from which we watch and we see and we experience. So, basically, what creates us suffering, going directly to the point, is not the external conditions. Because if it was like this, I can tell you, everyone here should be completely always happy. Because are the material conditions enough or not? The conditions are wonderful. Actually, the life of every one of us is quite perfect. It's a matter of us knowing how to live it in this way or not. So where is actually suffering coming from? From our ignorance? From our selfishness? Which is the obsession with the self-gratification? Our anxiety? Attachment? Unlimited desire? Insatisfaction? Hatred? Okay. And from all the attachments, I believe one of the greatest form of causes of suffering is what? Is the attachment to reality the way how we think it should be. We create expectations, we project how things should be, and what happens when they are not in the way how we think they should be? We get upset. So I believe that suffering is coming much more from an inner state than an outer cause. Okay? What happens around us is just the condition through which we manifest our anger, our jealousy, our fear, and so on. Okay? Now, within this perspective, what is happiness then? For me, one of the definitions of happiness is that state that normally lasts for a short period, but it's that moment, that inner state in which we do not want anything to be different from what it is. Everything is truly fine. Do we experience that sometimes? Yes, it doesn't last forever, but we can have that moment, right? And we can finally relax and we can stop protecting ourselves from something and going against something else, and we can simply say, okay, everything is fine. Also because if we truly look for our suffering, our mental suffering, do we suffer more for the past and the future, or we suffer more for the present? I believe that we pass much more of our time re-suffering the past and pre-suffering the future than actually suffering the present, right? Most of the times, oh, because that time, you know what happened to me, that person came and said this and he was not supposed to say that, and this gave that reaction and this happened, and look now where I am because of this and that, and we go on. About the future, who knows what will happen. But the truth is that the past is gone, not there anymore, and the future is totally uncertain. We have truly no idea what will really happen. So what do we really have?
the present. So based on this, if we look, a lot of our mental suffering is connected to the projections we create for the future, that when not fulfilled, we fear them not to be fulfilled, so we suffer from that. And when the future becomes present and things are not the way how we thought them should be, we get upset. And then we remain upset with the past, because the past was not that what we thought it should have been. Okay? And all of this is so tiring. Okay? So the point is that we need to come back to the present and we say, is it possible truly for me to be happy or not? My own definition of happiness, which as an objective, is I want to be in harmony with myself and others, in peace. I want to feel good, to be in harmony, without conflict, with myself and others, independently of where I am, with whom I am, in what situation I find myself. That's my goal, personally. I'm not yet there. And I'm working for it, and gradually I believe it's possible. Okay? So happiness is not an external goal. We will not be happy by gaining this, that, or that. We will be happy through an internal goal. It's the way how we live the world. It's not the way how the world is. And by changing the way how we relate to the world, we change the way how the world is. Okay. So from this, we come to the fourth point, which is how to be happy. And the way how to be happy, I believe there are different things that we can do. One of them is, yes, we need to take care of our body. So if I get sick, it would be more difficult life. So I really need to take care of my health. I need to take care of the relationships that I have. I need to care for them. I need to take care of the place where I live, of the environment at which I am, because we are influenced by all of this, right? So we need to take care of that. But at the same time, the most powerful resource that we have in our lives is our mind. And the mind comes together with all the emotions and everything that comes with it. Okay? So the main part that we need to take care is taking care of our mind. And making it short, in order to be happy, for me there are three things that we need to do. Okay? Love ourselves. To love ourselves means to make clear to us what is happiness. What do I want as happiness? And then we make a division between which are the things that I do that are harmful to myself and depend on me. Which are the things that are beneficial to myself but I am not doing, and that also depend on me. Make a list of these two. And to love ourselves means I will cultivate what is beneficial for me and I will abandon what is harmful to me. Are there things in our life that we know that are harmful to us but we continue doing? Physically, verbally, mentally? Yes. Are there things that we know that are good to ourselves but still we don't do enough? Sure, for every one of us, I believe, okay? If someone don't have that, you are really an exception, okay? So what does it mean to love ourselves? Not to change from one instant, but to put energy constantly to cultivate what is good and to abandon what is harmful. This is to love ourselves. The second part, which is very important, is to love others. Going directly to the point, mainly because of time. Are we selfish or not? Okay, I will define it. In front of a situation of judgment, what if something is good or bad, if we should do or if we shouldn't do, what is our reference? The I and the my, or the common well-being? If it's the I and the my, we are selfish, okay? And that's fine, that's normal. That's what we are. Okay? We can be different, but that's what we are right now. But if selfishly speaking, my main goal is to be happy, myself, and to help the people that are around of me to be happy also, I want my fun. Sometimes some people come to me and say, I am not selfish. I wish the happiness of my children more than my own. Sure, your children. Remember that the my is an extension of the I, okay? So, still selfish. The point is that, yes, we are selfish. And we give priority to our own happiness and the happiness of those that are around of us. That's okay. But if we are really selfish, let's at least be selfish in the right way. Let's do what is really beneficial for us, and not what harms us thinking that is good for us. Okay? So, going to the essence, selfishly speaking, the best thing is to be altruistic. Because when we take care of others, the one that receives the greatest of benefit is ourselves. No doubt about that. The more we give, the more we receive. When we experience truly the fact of opening our hearts towards others, the level of satisfaction and well-being that we can gain from that, it's much beyond anything that we can get by just fulfilling our own personal goals. I deeply believe in it. It's good to fulfill one's own personal goals. That's nice. But for me, the metaphor is like if we are used to eat strawberries. I don't know how often you eat strawberries here in Holland. A lot? Okay. I don't know how our strawberries here, but in Italy, when you go to a supermarket, the normal big supermarkets, the strawberries that you get nowadays, they are big and they taste like water. Okay? So imagine that you are used to eat strawberries that taste like water. Okay? And you like the strawberry, that it tastes like water. Okay, it's okay, nice, I like it. I'm happy when I get my strawberry. But then one day, someone gets you a strawberry that is a wild strawberry. The small, little, ugly one. But that when you eat, the drop of liquid is like really like red. That it has really strong taste of strawberry. What happens when you go back to the strawberry that tastes like water? Okay, but something really missing there, right? Fulfilling our own personal goals, it's good, but it's like a strawberry tasting like water. Okay? Truly doing something for others, it's like the real thing. It gives us a much different level of satisfaction and joy. Okay? It's very nice to be loved, but it's much, much better to love. So on our own path, one of the important things that we need to develop is this openness and this connection that we create with others, which basically means your happiness is as important as my happiness. One thing that we need to overcome in this process is that duality that we often create, which is the duality in which when I am doing something for others, it's a sacrifice that I do for myself. When I do something for myself, I feel guilty because I'm not taking care of others. We shouldn't be in that duality. The objective is to reach a state in which when I am doing something for others, I'm also taking care of myself. I'm also doing it for myself. Because I love you, and when I do something for you that I love, I'm also doing it for myself. And at the same time, when I'm doing something for myself, taking care of my health, doing something which is necessary for myself, I'm also doing it for others. Because if I am not well, how can I help others? So we shouldn't have anymore this distinction between myself and others. Whenever I do something, it's always for myself and for others. And the important thing for that is that we need to have clear what is happiness and how do I act for the happiness of myself and for the happiness of others, giving the same importance for both. But the true experience is something that we cannot put into words. We can try, but truly when we feel sincere love, when we really open our heart and we get that warm feeling that fills the whole of our body, and it feels like everything is in its right place, and we feel connected, and it's something that it's difficult to put it into words. Okay. The most happy people I have ever met up to today were the people, the most altruistic people that I met up to today also. And very often when we see very unhappy people, normally they're very selfish also. Normally most of the unhappiness that we have, where is it coming from? The worries for all the well-being of others, or because we are worrying about our own self normally? Mostly comes from a worrying from our own selves, okay? But there is one thing very important here that I like to bring. Love is a very important feeling, and it's a very important key part of developing happiness. Love and compassion that goes together. But we need always to remember that love has a limit, a limitation. And it's very important for us to respect the limit of love and to respect the limit of compassion. The limit of love is, I can love you as much as it's possible to love someone. I can love you completely, intensely, but still I cannot make you happy. I can have the deepest and the strongest of compassion for you, which is the wish for others to be free from suffering, but still I cannot take away your suffering. I cannot eliminate your suffering. This is a limitation that exists. This is a limitation that we have, and there is no other way around. Because sometimes can we get frustrated? I love you, I do so much for you, and you are still not happy. I do so much for the world, and look how the world is. So we need to remember that the only thing that we can do for anyone is to interact with them. We cannot do anything more than interact with them. If would come the most highly developed human being, or anyone, no? If we look from a Buddhist perspective, if all the Buddhas come here right now, and they want to help one person, what can they do to help that person? Interact with that person, that's all. With words, with energy, with feelings, physically, but we can only interact. We cannot make the person happy. We cannot take away the suffering. We can only interact. So we need to respect this limit of love. Otherwise, by opening our heart, we can get very frustrated if we do not respect this limit of love. Okay? The third thing, which is important, so first love ourselves, which is commit oneself to abandon what is harmful and to accomplish and cultivate what is positive and beneficial. Second step, love others. Open our heart. We need to see others, and by that we give the happiness of others is as important as our own happiness. The suffering of others is as important as our own suffering. Okay? And just one more thing about loving others. Remember, when we love someone, this doesn't mean that we need to agree with everything that a person does. Why I say this? Because very often I hear people say, how can I love that person? Look what he's doing. One thing has nothing to do with the other. I can love you deeply and still not agree with what you do and the way you act. Okay? So it's not because we love someone that we need to be there to say you are right. So it's possible to love those with whom we don't agree. In the same way, when we love someone, it doesn't matter who it is, and the person does something that we don't agree, we can still keep this feeling of love towards the person and say, sorry, I don't agree with that. But this doesn't mean I don't love you anymore. This doesn't mean that I'm not going to try to help you to be happy and to do the best that I can do for you. But this doesn't mean that necessarily I need to agree with what you do. Okay? And always remember, when we love someone, we are the one that receives most of anyone else. And we need to love by remembering that it's by giving that we receive, and it's not by making business. Because sometimes we love like making business. I give you this, so you give me that. And when you don't give me that, I stop giving you this. I have been loving you so much, and look what you are doing to me, so I stop loving you. This is business, right? In business it happens, we make an exchange. If the exchange is not being respected, there is no more reason to do it. And it even can ask back because you didn't do part of your own agreement. But love is not like that. And if we love in that way, I can tell you, we will suffer. So instead we love because we feel the need to wish the happiness of the other. And it's important to love, but without big expectations, without creating an idea how things should be. We just wish the other to be happy, and we do the best that we can for that. Okay? Third point for happiness. So love oneself, love others, relate to the world in a coherent way, in a consistent way, to be wise, to develop what in Buddhism we call a correct view of reality. Okay? I will make two short examples, then I will let each one to find your own, just to understand what it means, the attitude. The world in which we live, everything that we see, that we perceive around us, is it permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing, it's constantly moving, it's not static. Okay? But when we see someone and we meet the same person after a week or a month, who do we expect to meet? The same person or someone slightly changed? The same person. When we go to a place after a year, which place do we expect to see? The same place or a place that have changed? The same place. And can we get upset and suffer because things have changed? Yes. It's like getting upset because the sun is setting. Okay? So, what happened is the following. Even though reality is impermanent, how does it appear to our eyes? As being impermanent or as being permanent? Things appear to us as if they were permanent, and we believe in it. That's the most crazy part of it. When we stop to analyze, we say, no, it is impermanent. But without analyzing, we expect things just to be the same. That's ignorance. Because we see things in a way that they are not. Okay? So where is the wisdom? What is the correct view of reality in this case? To relate to impermanent phenomena as being impermanent. That's all. To see the impermanence in what is impermanent. And accept it and understand that that's how it is. And that's fine. The sun rises and the sun sets, and that's no big deal. That's simply how it is. Okay? This is one example. Another way. While I am talking here today, what arrives to your ears? Sounds or words? Natanda dene kiransola pyoke gitone keshebeina kiransogi amjola karakodo drakodo tsikodo. What now? Sounds, I would say, right? Because basically I just made the same question in Tibetan, okay? So normally we say, yes, there are words that are coming and then they come through sounds. But my own way of seeing it is that actually what arrives to our ears is simply sounds. And what we do to that sounds we attribute meaning. What is a language? It's a convention of meaning and sound. Okay? For me, it have happened few times. Last time I was in America, going to Brazil, and one Lama, he took me to the airport, and we were having tea, a Kuten Lama. And then suddenly he made me a question. And then I looked and I said, he cannot be making me this question. Then I waited before answering. And then he made me the same question again. And I said, no, he cannot be saying this. That's too rude. It cannot be this that he's saying. And he repeated again. And then I was about to answer when I just got some doubt, and I made another question in order to clarify his question. And I suddenly understood that what he was asking me was the most simple, stupid thing about the tea that I was having. But the sounds were somehow similar, and I attributed a complete different meaning to the sounds that I was listening. Another time I was with another friend. This friend told me something, and it was the most not disgusting, but like offensive way I think of saying. And I was ready to react on it. Then I said, that's a bit strange. So what I did was pause, rewind, and I re-listened to what was said. And I saw that actually the sound was similar, but it was something completely different what the person meant. And it was very coherent with what we were doing, and it was very normal. So how many times we say something and people understand something different? Okay, I make the question on the other way around. How often we say something and people understand precisely exactly what we mean? Almost never, right? Because verbal communication is faulty by its own nature. Because how does it work? I have a concept, I have a feeling, an emotion, I transform that. Let's say that I have a clear image of what is my own concept and my feeling. But let's say if I have this clear idea, which not always happens, I transform that into sound. When you receive that sound, you transform it again from sound into concepts and feelings. But normally the problem is that it's like, let's say when we send a text message or when we send an email, there are softwares that do the encryption, right? So there is the encryption and then there is the decryption on the other part. But imagine that we use different versions of softwares. And it will never come the same message. Because the value that you attribute to the sound that I am saying is not the same which I attribute. Even when we use the same words. It's like one time I went to Rome, and I was in the taxi, I was alone and I was going to the Congress somewhere. And then the taxi driver in Rome, he looked to me, spoke his very, very strong Rome dialect in Italian, and he looked and he said, "What are you dressed like that?" You know? And then I tried to explain to him, okay, I'm a Buddhist practitioner here, there, blah, blah. And then he looked to me and he made a very strange question. He said, "Do you believe in death?" Then I thought, okay, I think here we need to clarify what death is, otherwise it's too obvious to say yes or no. Obviously I will say yes. So I asked him, what do you mean by death? And then he looked to me even more strangely. And then I just said to him, look, if you think that death is the complete end of everything, I don't believe in death. If you think that death is the separation of the body and the subtle mind or the soul, whatever way you call it, then I believe in death. But the problem is that when we talk to each other very often, even we use the same words, but we give different meaning to the same words. So here we can see that communication is faulty by nature, especially verbal communication in this way. Okay? So this is just one small advice. Remember this. When we say something, most probably the other person will not understand really what we mean. So when we have someone coming and saying, "Oh, nobody understands me," don't worry, no one will ever understand you. Because no one will attribute the same meaning on what you say that you attribute yourselves. that we attribute to ourselves. That's the most normal thing, okay? Sometimes it happened to me to talk to people quite often, and sometimes I ask, did you understand? And people say yes. Then I'm wondering, what did they understand? Because something they understood, but exactly what, I don't know really. No? Anyhow, that's why sometimes I ask people to repeat back. And then if it really works, then okay, that's good. But what I want to say is that in the same way that what we listen are sounds to which we attribute meaning, what about what we see? What appear to our eyes? Are it people, or objects, or forms and colors, shapes and colors? What is coming to our eyes? Shapes and colors. What we do to that shapes and colors? We attribute meaning. But do we attribute the same meaning to the same object? No. Even though we may name it in the same way, it has a different meaning for each one of us. It's not always the same. Now I was looking at the flowers. No. One time in Brazil, a friend of ours, she's a teacher in a school, in a public school, in a very poor area of the city, São Paulo. And there was an event where all the parents were coming to the school. So what she did was that she wanted to make something to honor all the mothers. So she took one of the classrooms and she bought a lot of flowers from her own pocket. She bought many flowers and she filled up this room with flowers as a way of honoring all the mothers. But during the day, no one entered that room. The people would go nearby, they would see all the flowers, they would turn their face back to the other side and they would walk by fast. And she was a bit upset. She said, what happened, you know? Why no one is enjoying what I did? And then someone looked to her and said, are you crazy? She said, why? Flowers. We only see flowers in funerals. So flower for us is something that only remembers our death. Because in this poor part of the city, they would only see flowers in funerals. So what's the meaning of flower? Death. And normally most of the people there, they had the most tragic type of death in their families around and so on. So entering into a place full of flowers, it's not a pleasurable experience. Same object, different value. If we explain the same thing from a different perspective, if we take, for instance, this object here, which we call it a glass, right? To drink water. Or even the water itself. Is the same thing for a human being or for a fish? No, right? It's always the same substance. But even from one human being to the other, for someone that is thirsty and someone that is not thirsty, is it the same object? Not really. Okay? So what happens is the following. At the same instant, how many possibilities lie within this object right now? How many things, how many functions can this object fulfill? How many different concepts can be attributed to this same object that the object can fulfill? Because I cannot call it a dog, right? I can call it a dog, but still it will not fulfill the functions of a dog. So that's a wrong perception. But how many perceptions would be correct on this same object? I believe countless. Can it be a weapon to hit someone? I believe so. Can it be a vase to put a small flower? Can it be used to place paper? I like this, I can go on and on and on for many other ways of meanings that it could have. But how does it work? There are countless possibilities that lie in the same moment in every object. But we, out of our own perception, we choose one of these countless possibilities. I call it a glass. Okay? Or let's make another example. I take this object here. What is this? I call it a mala, which is a rosary. Can it be seen as a necklace? Can I use it as something to place on the table when it comes to a hot pan? It works. Can I use it as a weapon to hit someone? I've seen it a few times being used like that. Can I use it as an object, not really to pray and meditate, but an object to show that I am a spiritual person? Okay? I can give many different functions to it, okay, that it can fulfill. So what happens is that at the very right moment, there are countless possibilities lying within the same object. But we, as observers, we choose one of these countless possibilities. The problem is that we are not aware of that, and we think that the possibility that we chose is not even a possibility, it's the actual reality. And what happens when someone else comes and attributes a different meaning to that? He is wrong. And we can discuss about it. And we can go into conflict about it. So one of the points is that, do we live in a reality that is objective or subjective? The same situation, the same object, can it be perceived in a different way or better? Is it perceived in a different way by each one, even though similar? Or is it perceived by everyone in the same way and some of them perceive wrongly? Different ways, right? So the reality in which we live, it's a subjective reality. But even though it's a subjective reality, how does it appear to us? As being subjective or as being objective when not analyzing? Objective. So that's ignorance. That we live in a reality that is subjective, but we relate to it as if it was objective. What is wisdom? To see the subjective reality as being subjective. So this is the third part, which means to have a correct view of reality. Okay? And this is something that is very, very important. So now, what is happiness? It's an inner state in which we love ourselves, in which we love others, we feel connected to ourselves, we are connected to others, and we live in a coherent way with the world that surrounds us. Okay? So now, when helping others, we will help others in accordance to what we think is the best for them, which is a reflection of what we think is the best for us. So the deepest is our understanding of happiness, the deepest will be our love and compassion and the ways to help others. One very important thing here when talking about helping others, the first step to help others is to be able to see them. Very often we see help being given, which actually, I'm sorry if I am a little bit hard the way I will put it, but very often I see help being given, which is actually more a way of self-gratification to help than really worrying to help the other. It's like sometimes it happened to me because if I am not well, if I am sad, if there is something that is not so well with me, my attitude is I close myself to myself. And I need my time. Give me my space, give me my time, I will come out of it soon. Okay, that's how I am. And it have happened sometimes that someone comes to me and say, what happened to you? I say, I don't need to talk. No, but what happened to you? Please tell me, I want to help you. But what I need is my space. And then the person get upset to me because he or she wants to help me and I do not allow them to help me. So then I need to go out of my state and I need to, okay, let me allow you to help me. Because if what you really want is to help me and I'm saying to you the best way of helping me is not helping me, then be happy not to help me, no? But very often that doesn't happen. People get offended. How come you do not allow me to help you when I want to help you? So what do you truly want? To help me or to be gratified that you are helping me? Okay, I'm sorry if I'm too direct, but when actually we are truly talking about helping others, first thing is we need to see the need of others. That's what happened when we come from one country to another country, from one culture to another culture. We go there and we impose to others what we think is the best, without going and understanding what they really need and what they really feel. And very often, instead of helping, we end up harming. Okay? So the first step before helping, especially when we are talking about in a social level, we go to meet people that are in different conditions than ours, that come from different cultures than ours, and so on. The only way truly to help someone else is by knowing that person well. When my master, Lama Michel Rinpoche, came to the Western world, in the beginning of the 80s, he chose to stay 10 years without teaching. He only taught very basic things, because he said, I cannot teach until I do not know the culture. So he gave him 10 years to live together with the Western world in order to understand better the Western world in order to be able to teach. So one of the first steps is that the more I have clear what is happiness for me, the more I have clear what I wish for others. But in order, before imposing it to someone, I must know the person. And when happiness is an inner state, we will not go all to that inner state through the same identical process. What is a good process to one is not necessarily a good process to the other. That's why helping is not easy. We need compassion, we need love, and we also need wisdom. The wisdom of seeing the other. And we need to be very humble. We need to have the humility to understand that my way is not necessarily their way. Okay. So, when we help others, we help ourselves. This I have no doubt. But we need always to remember that when we go to help someone, remember the limits of love and compassion. We are just a small agent, just a small part on helping the other. It's like a doctor. Can a doctor cure anyone? No. Who can cure the patient? The patient himself. How? By following the diet, by changing the lifestyle, by taking the medicine, by following the prescription, if you went to the right doctor. Right? That's why it's always important to choose the right doctor. But it's more important to follow correctly the prescription. Because sometimes people go to the doctor, then don't follow correctly the prescription, then come back saying that he's not a good doctor because he didn't get cured. And blame the doctor for that. And the poor doctor come there and say again, did you take the medicine? And the person say yes, but truly was a yes halfway, because half I took, half I didn't, but I say yes. Did you stop smoking? Oh yes, I stopped for 2 days, but I stopped. You know? If we do not follow the prescription correctly, we will not work. So in the same way, the only person that can help someone is ourselves, can help ourselves. Each one can help himself, truly. We can help materially. Yes, that's the most simple way of helping. Giving food, giving house, giving material resources. That's on the very basic needs, and that's very important. We can help physically, with medicine, with treatments, with many other ways. We can help others by giving affection, by giving love. That's also very powerful. We can help others by sharing knowledge. And we can help others by helping them to avoid suffering also. For instance, a person is very hungry, and will have the whole night without food, I give him some food. I am being generous materially, but I'm also protecting him from a night of hunger. There are many ways how we can help, but one thing that we always need to remember is have clear what is happiness. So what do we really wish for others? And first of all, we need to see the other so that we can truly help him or her in the correct way. Okay. So, the conclusion is, what we really want is to be happy. So let's have a clear idea of what happiness is. My idea today here was not to come to teach anything to anyone, but simply to share what I believe. Okay? To share what I understood and what for me is important, some aspects of that. Before concluding, I would like to open for some questions, and then after that we go for a conclusion. I know that it's a little bit harsh suddenly to go for questions, but I don't know, I know no other way. Or it can be a commentary also, doesn't necessarily need to be a question.
I have a question.
Okay?
You said we talked about the boxes, no?
Yeah.
Fitting and not fitting. Okay, and then first you make people, the person, see the one as a person. Can you tell something more how to see the other one as a person in this sense, this
Okay.
context?
When I said to see the person as a human being, first of all, and not to put inside the boxes, try to take the person out of the box.
Mhm.
It's like this. We have a person that we relate to. And that person inevitably goes inside a category normally. Okay, so let's say this person is a friend, or this person is a father, or a mother, or a son, and so on. Together with the box comes expectations of what a person should do, what a person shouldn't do, how the person should be, how the person shouldn't be. So we start to take these expectations out. We start to say, okay, here you are. One of the ways of doing that is that of imagining that we look from outside. And we are looking at a person not anymore as a son, not anymore as a father or mother, not anymore as a husband or wife, as someone completely external. And we look to the person from that other perspective. So we need somehow to be able to do that, we need somehow to get out of ourselves, from our role. And when we look to the person from a different perspective, it's like, for example, when we look to our parents, when we were a kid and when we become adults. If we go backwards, we can see the same things that they did in the past. When we were a kid, we looked in a certain way. When we become an adult, that we have had our own experiences, we can see the same actions in a completely different way. So it's somehow to try to get out of the role in which we are, in order to take away the person from the box with which we put. Is the way. It's a bit tricky because truly we are not able to do.
Yeah.
But we can, truly we cannot do it. But we need to fake it somehow.
Okay.
So that we can have some idea in a different way. Okay. Please.
I'm a teacher here at NHL.
Yes.
I have a student that I'm coaching for about a year now. And I've given him feedback on certain aspects of his work many times. And I keep giving feedback on the same aspect. So I feel a bit like the doctor who has given prescriptions, but the patient hasn't taken the prescriptions well because I don't see any progress. And I'm at a point that I think, how useful is it to keep coaching him? Because I don't see any progress. And what would be love to this student to do?
Maybe
One,
repeat.
to repeat the question.
Possible?
Okay, I'll make it short. The question was that our friend is a teacher here and has been coaching one student particularly, and in the process of teaching and coaching him, have seen some aspects in his words which work and which need improvement. And even though showing that again and again, there has been no improvement on that aspect. So the question is, what should I do? Should I show how is the way of giving love? Is continuing to do it or giving up on it? And so on. One of the most difficult things that I find, truly, is to help others to help themselves. It's something really difficult. It's not easy at all. Because when we point out something that we see that needs to be changed, very often that aspect, it's something that is connected to many other things which we cannot see. There are other aspects connected to the relationship that this person is having with their family, with maybe something physical that is happening, with something that is related, which means to health, something that can be related to some traumas of the past, something that can be related with so many things. And for us it looks simple, because in our own reality it would be simple, but because we cannot see all the other aspects that are connected to it, and that's just the tip of an iceberg, we think that it's easy. And we take it for granted that this change can be made easily. But actually, for that person, one thing is to understand, another thing is to put it into practice. And it's like sometimes we are like if we have ropes tightening us from other sides. We want to go, but we cannot. Why? Because there are other things in our life that somehow direct us. Or it's like if you take someone and there is on a sailing and you say, come together with me, but the person doesn't know well how to deal with that current or with that wind that is coming. So even though I want to go in one direction, I don't know how to. So sometimes when we try to help someone and we are not able, truly, we may get frustrated and we say, I want to help you, but you don't want my help. I do not agree so much with that. I think I want to help you, but I cannot find yet the right way how to help you. I do not find this correct language in which to talk to you. So when we see something where there is, for example, in this case, where there is the need of improvement, and by using the same technique is not working, we need to understand, maybe need to go around to other way, maybe need to talk about other things that somehow. And in this way, when going through love, one of the things that help in this case is intuition. Is open oneself and then just somehow do something from the heart, maybe completely disconnected from that. I don't know, for whatever reason it remembered me one situation that my mom went through. My mom is a psychologist, especially working with terminal ill patients. Okay? So one time in Brazil, she was called to help one man to die. Her work mainly is to try to help people to die in a peaceful way. Okay? And help the person that is dying and the family around. So she was called to go to see one man. He was an old man in Brazil, very wealthy and very, very angry. So everyone that tried to do anything there, it simply didn't work. He was using the most harsh and unpolite words towards people. And all the nurses after 2 days want to go away, independently of the fact that they were paying very well. And nobody wanted to be there, and with his own children and everything, he was completely aggressive. So my mom went there, and he was, who are you, what are you doing here, and already talking really not a nice way. My mother saw that he didn't have much time. He had a really critical situation. So she thought, what do I do? Because there was no even any space for talking or for anything. So she needed to go back the other day there, and she had a sort of intuition. He was Jewish, and he had a lot of pain, which was coming from the period of war and so on. But anyhow, she just got one CD with lullabies, music for children to sleep, Jewish music for children to sleep. Okay? And she thought, he will really spit in my face when he sees this today, because, you know, he's this very, very serious man, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, that is there, I will bring him, I will put him there music for children, you know. But anyhow, he's already shouting at me, what difference did it make? Let's try something. And when she brought there and she put the music to play, she just sat by him and she put the music to play. And then he became silent. And then he started to cry. Because this, by chance, were the music that his mother used to sing to him. And then came out all the pain during the Second World War, where he lost his mother and all the pain that came through it. And he finally made peace with all of that somehow. And then from that moment on, that very violent attitude changed. So what I want to say is that if she would have had followed her logic, she would have never ever brought the music for children. But sometimes, when we open our heart and we follow our intuition where other things are not working, it's the best. So if we try in one way and we see it's not working, we need to try to truly to connect to the person and see what is holding the person from making this change that is necessary. And there are other things. And never give up. When we talk about the qualities of a teacher in Buddhism, and it's the qualities of a spiritual guide in this case, one of the qualities is never to give up on a student. That's one of the qualities that we should have. Okay. Any other question? Yes, please.
A mother, and I am a mother, and I have children, and the love for my children is onvoorwaardelijk.
Unconditional.
Unconditional. Yes. Is that the same kind of love that you were talking about?
Okay, I'll just repeat the question. So you were saying that as a mother, the love that you have for your children is an unconditioned love. If that's the same love that I was talking about. Yes? In many Buddhist texts, when it talks about the love that we should develop for others, it says the same type of love that a mother has for her only child. So it's when it doesn't matter what the child will do, the mother always loves the child. So that's the type of love that ideally we should develop for everyone. Okay. That's why it is said that by being a mother, you already have one gear more to be able to love others because you already know what that means. Okay? And I like just to take the advantage of that question and go into a conclusion, share with you one exercise that you can do to develop love. Okay? I invented this exercise some years ago because I was studying in Tibet. And then I stayed like 3 months only going to the monastery, only seeing my teachers and some other monks, very few people. Very beautiful moment. And when I went out and I was going back to Italy, so I went to Beijing, on my way on the airport, I was just seeing people and I just wanted to hug them. Now I am Brazilian. In Brazil we are used to hug people. Even when we don't know them, we hug each other. And what happened was that I was looking around and I saw everyone so beautiful. Even though, okay, they were mostly Chinese and for me they looked very similar to each other, but I really loved them and I really wanted to hug and I had this deep, beautiful feeling, wow, so nice, and I was feeling so good with it. Sure, I didn't manifest it so much as I went through the airport and going on and so on. But then when I arrived in the hotel, I still had that warm feeling. And I said to myself, I don't want to lose that. Because I know this is something specific of this moment, but I don't want to lose that. So how to cultivate this beautiful feeling? Because when we truly love others, we are the one that receive the most. So I thought about an exercise that I started to do, and it works a bit well. So I'd like to share it with you also. Choose one person a day, possibly someone that you don't know. Someone where you work, where you study, in the road, someone that is the taxi driver, whoever, okay, on the restaurant. If it's someone that you already know, try not to do with the same person every day. Okay? You can also do with the same person every day, but at least do with different people also. Okay? The exercise is the following. You go to the person, look at the person's eyes, possibly. Not always it's possible, but try to do at least. And say to the person, I love you. Don't need to verbalize. Internally. Okay? So internally, you say to the person, without the need to put it into words, you just say, I love you, your happiness is important for me. I wish you to be happy. Simple as that. I don't know who you are, I don't know where you come from, I don't know what you have done, what you have not done, but I wish you to be happy. I have done that many times, and there were many times in which I started to do it, and suddenly from the other person, and naturally when we do that, we start somehow to smile. And then the other person sometimes starts to smile back. And it's such a beautiful experience. You know, and another thing, keep it secret, okay? Don't need to say to people, oh no, you know I love that. Don't need to say, just keep it for yourself. And there is the only one danger in that. It creates addiction. Which is a good one. But try it for a week. If it works, do it. If it doesn't, forget about it, okay? Liz.
Can you do the same without seeing the person? Can you send your love? Does it reach the person?
If we can send the love to the person without seeing, yes, it's possible. I truly believe that from within our feelings, we are influenced by the thoughts and emotions of each other. Okay? And here there are two aspects. One is the love that we give. Another one is the fact that we develop this love within ourselves. Okay? And we can do both, even without being in front of the person. This is possible also. The only thing that we need to be careful when talking about developing love for everyone is not to develop an idealized idea of love and say, I love everyone with the exception of that 5 people. That doesn't work, okay? So it's not like, okay, I have love for all the little children that are orphans, and I have love for all the people that are in this and that condition, and that's wonderful. But we need to love the people that we relate with on our daily life. We need to even love the ones that we really don't like so much. That's when we are able to go beyond our selfishness. And it's not that difficult. It's not so difficult, and we don't need to be afraid of loving others. We don't lose anything. When we love someone, we just gain. We do not lose anything by loving others. Okay? So try to do this exercise. And if you see a benefit, move forward with it. Okay? If there is no any more question, I will go for a conclusion. Okay? The conclusion is the following. Life goes by fast. We are going to die. Much sooner than later. Okay? And we have no any idea when. No problem. That's just a fact. Okay? So what does it mean to be aware of our own mortality? That every day is precious. That we must live every day of our life as the most important day because it is. It's never too late and it's never too early. To change ourselves, to be happy. And remember, the life of most of us is already perfect. We just need to be able to live it in this way. We have everything to be happy, but we must allow ourselves to be happy. By bringing ourselves to the present, by loving ourselves, by loving others. But do not wait one day, suddenly it will happen. Oh, now I am studying, I have no time to be happy. Now I am working, I have no time to be happy. Now I am retired, okay, I don't know anymore how to be happy. Whatever, okay? When I arrived in Europe to live, After a short period, I understood one thing. I was saying to everyone, I have no time. I was living in India before in the monastery for many years. And one moment I realized it's not true that I have no time. Because what I understood was that it was not cool to have time. Okay? If you have time available, means you are no one, you have nothing to do. So to say that you have no time, it's nice. It means you are important somehow. So we end up saying, like a friend of mine, that she told me once clear, she said that she would go out of home early in the morning with the car, and then not knowing where to go. It's a little bit somehow what we do. We run, and very often we don't know even where we are going. So what I understood is that it's not true that I have no time, you know. Every day I have the time that it takes for Earth to go around itself one time. The question is, which are the priorities that I give in my life? Where do I put that time? How do I use it? So allow yourself to be happy. Allow ourselves to be happy. Allow ourselves to love others. And put priority in what really matters. Remembering that we do not live forever. And we never know when this forever will end, when our life will end. So we need to live in the best way every moment that we have. Okay? So I like to end with one phrase that always accompanies me. And I try to share it as much as I can. And the phrase in Tibetan, it says, Chego chego samne nishu song, majung majung samne nishu song, aka aka samne nishu song, tetarangane longor drukchulong mi se tongba sebe namdaring. It was said by a great master of Tibet, Kundan Champayar, and in English it means something like that. Thinking of doing it, 20 years passed by. I couldn't do it, 20 years passed by. Oh, why I didn't do it, 20 years passed by. In such way, 60 years passed by. That's the biography of an empty life. Okay, remember that in Tibet people used to live up to 60. If we just add not thinking of doing it, 20 years pass by, we get to 80, okay? So, my point is the following. If there is anything that we truly believe is important, especially in changing our behavior, changing the way how we are and the way how we relate to the world, we must start today, because tomorrow is too late. And if we do, it happens. If we don't do, it will never happen. Because nobody can do it for us. Nobody can live our life for us. Nobody can make the changes for ourselves. Only we can do it. So, if there is something that we truly believe, we must start today. No excuses. We just do it. And slowly we get there. So, one request that I do to everyone is, please, if there is anything that I said here today that you may think that is of benefit for yourself, just try to put it into practice. That's all I request. Okay? Thank you very much.